The Eagles have made a move to at the punter position. Finally, Aaron Sipos has been released by the team, and Braden Mann has been signed to the practice squad. He'll probably be activated on game day. In another position, Avonte Maddox has been pretty much ruled out for the rest of the year. And William Jackson III was worked out today. No word on whether, they've signed him or what the deal is. William is 31 years old. He was with Pittsburgh all of last year. Did not play because of a back injury. As we jump around the rest of what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, I want to talk about, the fact that the Eagles are 2-0. And in the city, everyone's kind of been out of shape a little bit about where this team is and where this team is heading. I would encourage you to kind of hang tight and realize that at the end of the day, they're 2-0. They're not 0-2. They're not 1-1. They're 2-0. And, while it's been a rough go of it, the Eagles are still 2-0 and undefeated, which means that they are tied with the Cowboys for the division lead, and they're tied with the Cowboys and the 49ers for the NFC lead. A lot of you guys will be like, well, it's early in the season. Exactly. That's my point exactly. That the team is 2-0. They got all these ties going on, but they still got 15 games to go. And the toughest part of their schedule is ahead of them. I've been listening on the radio today, a lot of conversation about how much better, other teams around the league are than the Philadelphia Eagles, per se, the Cowboys. Let's deal with the Cowboys first. The Cowboys beat the New York Giants and the New York Jets. Didn't really need a whole lot of offensive production. If you really go back and look at it, CeeDee Lamb had a big week last week. But not much offensive production because the defense has played so lights out. So is that offensive unit really that elite? At the end of the day, they're 2-0 just like us. They found a way to win just like us. They probably won a little more impressively than we did. Then you have the San Francisco 49ers. Again, they're 2-0. Neither one of their opponents, just like the Dallas Cowboys opponents, in my opinion, are really that much better or that much well-placed than the Philadelphia Eagles, the opponents of the Philadelphia Eagles, I should say. So at the end of the day, it's really too early to say, that the Eagles aren't where they need to be. Of course, no doubt about it. They're experiencing some issues early on here, but they got 15 games to get it together. And I want you guys to consider, I want you to think about who they've played against. They played against one of the greatest defensive minds and his understudy last week. Had Bill Belichick week 1. Then all of a sudden, week 2, they get Brian Flores. So, yeah, they're going to have some issues because those guys are very good at what they do. Third up, they got Todd Bowles coming up. And all over again, here we go. One of the best defensive coordinators, one of the best minds in the game. The good thing about where the Eagles are and what happened on Thursday, they find a way to win the game with all these young guys on the defensive side of the ball. But now you've got, they're going to have 10 days in between the time that they played and the time that they play again. What does that do? That gives Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson the opportunity to kind of dissect the first 2 games of the season and kind of figure out what they've got to do to overcome these offenses that, that are opposing Jalen Hurts. I don't think there's all Jalen Hurts, although, quite naturally, there are some pundits out there that want to make it seem like it's all Jalen Hurts' fault. I think it's a combination of Brian Johnson being, a brand new play caller, a combination of, Jalen Hurts not playing his best. And then I think you got to give these defenses that they faced the first 2 weeks, the New England Patriots, coached by Bill Belichick, and the Minnesota Vikings, now coached by Brian Flores, some credit, because they figured out a way to stymie Jalen Hurts in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't like the fact that we talk about it, but yeah, they may have created a blueprint for how to deal with Jalen Hurts. Now it's up to Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson to figure it out, to figure out what they're going to do to counter. What is the adjustment to the adjustment? How can they give Jalen the tools to overcome what he's facing from week to week to week? Okay, that's the first thing. Then you jump over on the other side of the ball real quickly. It gives Sean Desai time, because you're not going to have Avonte Maddox anymore, it seems like. So a lot of young guys are going to have to play. I don't know. You guys were watching the game the other night, and to me, it was just crazy how there was a point in time where Darius Slay was the only veteran on the field, at one point. And the issue that you have when you have so many young players on the field and inexperienced guys on the field, you have this communication barrier where all of a sudden guys aren't talking. They're not talking pre-snap about what could possibly happen. And they're not talking about pre-snap, if this guy goes in motion, or if we get a check, what are we going to do? If this guy releases in or he releases out, that communication is so important. I can't express to you how important that communication is. So those young guys, Ringo, Goodrich, Josh Jobe, Brown, all those guys played really, really admirably on Thursday night. But as you got to the end of the game, you saw the Minnesota Vikings staff and Kirk Cousins begin to take advantage of the lack of communication that was going on in the secondary, and they started hitting some plays. These 10 days gives Sean Desai and his secondary coach an opportunity to kind of work through some of this stuff and try to figure out, what adjustments they have to make in game and how to get these guys to start communicating, not only on the field, but they need to start communicating in the meeting rooms. Like, if I'm a coach, okay, and my guys come in the room and we're watching film, and I'm telling them, okay, this is what the offensive plays look like, okay, and this is the call. I better hear some chatter behind me. Those guys that plan on playing, they better start talking. Tell me, okay, alert here. If they go in motion, this is what they're going to do. When the guy goes in motion, I want to hear the check, and I want to hear what the adjustment is off of that. If a guy shifts, talk to me. That way I know that you know what the adjustment should be, and you know what you should be doing. And if you're communicating it in the meeting room, then guess what? You're going to communicate it in the walkthrough. You're going to communicate it in practice. And if you do it in those three places, it becomes automatic on Sunday that you communicate what's actually going on. Okay. So that's my thought on, the first 2 weeks and what the Eagles have to overcome. So there's a couple of questions up on the board that I'd like to address, because some of you guys are still concerned. See Me says, Seth, why are we not seeing pre-snap reads and adjustments to get completions from Hurts like we see from other quarterbacks? Okay. Understand that Jalen is seeing a lot of things differently. There's another question up there that addresses how the offensive line is playing. And I'm going to tell you this, the offensive line is not playing at the level from a passing standpoint as it has over the years. They are really, really, seeing some different things. And it's not only Jalen is being confused, but the offensive line is being confused. So let me paint you a picture of what Jalen is seeing, and let me also paint you a picture of what the offensive line is seeing, so that you can kind of understand how, everybody is in a state of confusion from time to time as the game goes on. So in the first game, you had Bill Belichick lined up 5 down linemen. He lined up 2 linebackers with 3 DBs behind and a single high safety. And what they decided to do was, okay, they got the guys on the second row, they're kind of just walking around, kind of muddled and not really doing anything. So it makes it very hard for Jalen and the protection to figure out what coverage they're in, who's coming on the blitz, who's not coming on the blitz, so on and so forth. Okay. So the ball is snapped. You get one DB goes back in the halves. Another DB comes up and covers. One linebacker blitzes. I mean, you got guys that are going all over the place. So whatever it is that Jalen thought he saw, and you can call it a regression, a revert if you want to, okay? But it's a very good way of creating chaos for quarterbacks. And I think in a lot of ways, you'll start to see some more of this, as time goes on. But quarterbacks who can't predetermine or exactly what's going on, it's hard for them to know exactly where to go with the ball, especially when you're in a situation like if you got a play call, and offensive coordinators call plays to defeat coverages. So if they feel like they may get, cover 2 on second down, okay, and they want to throw the ball on second down, they've got routes on that big sheet. They've got routes that help them determine what play they want to call to defeat cover 2 on this second down situation. But when you line up and you don't get the cover 2 look and they rotate the cover 4, well, now you got a problem, okay? Because Jalen's first read might not necessarily be there because they're playing a coverage that he doesn't anticipate. So I always say that the first 4 games of the season are really a proving ground for most football teams, okay? Because me as a player, I need 4 game films that I can break down of my opponent, and then I can tell you every single thing that you want to and everything you need to know about that offense. Because after 4 games, you can't hide and you can't, hold up a veil about who you really are, because you're going to do the things over a 4-game span that you're comfortable with, that you're successful with, and the things that your quarterback is comfortable with. Okay, so there's no getting away from it. I can sit here and I can begin to look at the data. I can look at the analytics that tells me, okay, on second down and 5, on the plus 30, okay, this is what you like to do, because the data is right there. It tells me every team has tendencies. So if I get that information, it's easy for me as a defense to say, okay, this is how we want to attack that situation, this down and distance, okay? So for coaches kind of operate in the same manner, so to speak. And what they really do is they're trying to, create confusion for Jalen. And they've been able to do it in a great way, and it's not just him. It's affected the protection, because when you think a guy is supposed to be dropping and he winds up rushing and he's not accounted for in the protection, now you got a free runner. Okay, you might want to be trying to get a running back out in a route and he can't get out because all of a sudden you bring a guy that forces him to stay in. If he's the primary in the read, then guess what? You have to go really quickly to the next read. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye. A lot of people think it's really non-complicated. They believe that, hey, Jalen is regressing, that he's not the player that he was last year, that the Eagles have made a mistake, that he's not, believe this or not, that he's not the franchise. Hold on. Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes, okay? They're 2 games in. You got a new offensive coordinator. They're seeing some things that they probably haven't seen and haven't been prepared for, okay? It's hard to prepare for something that you've never seen before. Some of these things that Bill Belichick has done, and some of these things that Brian Flores did on Thursday night, they never saw him before. So what's the remedy? The remedy, in my opinion, is exactly what they did. They ran the football. They ran the football, and they caused the Minnesota Vikings to get out of some of the things that they were doing because they ran the ball so effectively. Now I get it. It is not part of the new age mentality to run the football the way they ran the football on Thursday night. Most teams, listen, they want to throw the ball all over the map, get a lead, and then they want to run the clock out at the end of the game. That's all fine and well when it works out that way. But when it doesn't work out that way, do most teams in the National Football League have the wherewithal? Do the coaches have the wherewithal to turn around and say, hey, okay, we're going to revert. We're going to go to the running game. We're going to set up the running game, in a way that allows us to get to the passing game. Most coaching staffs don't. So I give Nick Sirianni and his staff a lot of credit for feeding the running back, DeAndre Swift, the ball 28 times the other day for 175 yards. That's going to be their path forward because it accomplishes two things. It allows the defensive line to be dominant. And once they begin to start dominating the line of scrimmage, then it makes it easier for them in pass protection, okay? The second thing is it puts the defense in a precarious position because I know from firsthand experience, the most debilitating thing in the world is to line up against a team and they're running the ball and you know they're going to run the ball and you can't do anything to stop it. You have no remedy for it whatsoever. So then you start cheating and you start trying to figure out, okay, let me start guessing. Okay. Then it forces the defensive coordinator to call the game differently. Because if we can't stop it with a four-man front, if we can't stop it with a seven-man front, with a seven-man box, guess what? We got to drop an extra guy in the box. What does that do? That makes you weaker on the back end. You got to go to a five-man front to be able to get it under control, like we've had to do in the past. What does that do? That makes you weaker on the back end. Now your play action pass comes in. Now your rollouts come in. Now your misdirection plays come in. Now you can get back to your RPO and your read option from time to time if that's what you want to get to. But I'm not ready to panic yet. It's been a rough go. The most positive thing is, hey, they're still 2-0. And the most positive thing is the majority and the lion's share of the season is still ahead of them. They've got time to figure it out. Jalen Hurts has got time to figure it out. His passing stats aren't all that impressive. I mean, he's completing at a high percentage. He's at 67%. That's pretty darn good. But he's only averaging 181 yards per game through these first two games. He's only averaging one touchdown pass passing per game. He's only averaging, a half a interception per game through two games. I think if we average that out over 17 weeks, we'd be happy to take those 8.5 sacks, those 8.5 interceptions, I should say, excuse me. The thing that troubles me the most is the 3.5 sacks a game that he's averaging. And a lot of these sacks aren't necessarily sacks that are happening in the pocket. Some of these have happened while he's scrambling outside the pocket, and instead of throwing the ball away, he runs out of bounds and takes a sack. A couple are he's scrambling, he gets to the line of scrimmage, and he's trying to make a move instead of just jumping and getting over the line of scrimmage to avoid a sack. So they've got to do a better job. Jalen's got to do a better job. The offensive line's got to do a better job. They've got to do a much better job at committing to run the football early. I mean, and I would implore you guys, I get it. Running the football is as ancient and as extinct as the Raptor and the T-Rex. I understand that. But to me, it's still a way to get your offense under control when it's not working. Everybody wants to throw the ball. That's the sexy thing. Everybody wants the big play down the field. But when you have these good defensive coordinators that can take the deep ball away, the next best thing you can do is run the football and go to your short passing game. The Eagles need to develop their screen game. They're not a good screen team, and that does not bode well for them. Screens, tight end screens with good timing, all of those things begin to help in a massive way. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Waiting on, hopefully Warren Sapp will join me at some point here so we can talk about the upcoming game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday night. If not, it'll be you and me. I'll start taking your questions, and we'll just hammer this thing out. All right? I'll see you guys in a sec.
When you open the BetParks app, you're in the zone. Winning is always a rush, but the money is in the moments. It's the confidence and underdogs covering, the tension before a clutch turnover, and the pride of a parlay paying off. It's another chance to win big with all-day action. Plus, win your first $10 bet and get $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun, you love to win. You bet. BetParks.
If you understand that success is built on trusted relationships and dependable performance, Mid-Penn Bank is the right bank for you. We're on a mission to prove that the right bankers can make a big difference. We work harder, we get things done, and we're in your corner. With financial centers strategically located throughout the greater Philadelphia region and new locations in central New Jersey, we're ready to bring you the best in commercial and personal banking. Call or visit us today to connect with a professional Mid-Penn banker. Member FDIC. Go Eagles!
Welcome to Bridgeview Partners, where IT and business innovation merge. We're not just another tech company. We're your strategic partner in navigating the ever-evolving digital landscape. Our team of experts tailors cutting-edge solutions to fit your unique needs, and ensuring your success is our top priority. Elevate your business with Bridgeview Partners. Discover the power of partnership and tech innovation today. Contact us now to experience the difference. Bridgeview Partners, where innovation meets excellence.
Next time, babe. Okay, and we're back. So let's jump into some of our questions here, and I got to give my producer a chance to scroll back to the top. So I want to make sure that we get some of you guys that logged on early and stayed with me through the technical errors and get to some of your questions. Okay. Let's see. You know what? I'm gonna let you pull them, man. You pull them, and I'll read them, and we'll go from there. So, John Skill says thoughts on the defense, Seth. Why is Kobe on the roster? Well, I like what I see out of the defense. You know, my only issue is, you know, the youth that we have on the defensive side of the ball. We've got so many guys that are injured. Nakobe Dean is out for an extended period of time. James Bradbury was out last week in the concussion protocol. And I believe Reed Blankenship had a rib issue last week. I think that he's going to be back. And obviously, you know, we've lost Devontae Maddox for the year, I would assume. The bright spot is the defensive tackles. I mean, they have just been playing lights out as of lately. All the way across the board, from the old pro. Fletcher Cox has played well. The third rounder out of Milton Williams has played well, and the two young guys out of Georgia have just been lights out thus far. I think the injuries to Hassan Reddick's thumb has rendered him, useless. It's one thing to be able to have the speed to win. It's another thing to be able to have your hands operate the proper way so that you can get blockers off you and so that you can grab the quarterback and get sacks. I think that's hampered him. I also believe that Nolan Smith is a guy, who's experiencing some shoulder issues, and, not having him. Josh Sweat flashed last week. Great job. Need to see Brandon Graham step his game up in the absence of Smith, and the absence of Reddick, being able to be as effective as you really need and want him to be. As far as Kobe is concerned, I think that he's on the roster because, he's a sure-handed guy. He did fumble the ball last week, and, we recovered it back. But I think they trust him to catch the football more than they trust anybody else to. I don't think he's back there for his return skills. I believe he's back there because, of his ability to catch the ball, and for the coaching staff to feel comfortable about the fact that he will feel the ball when necessary. All right. Next question. That Eric wants to know how much longer for Jalen to get it dialed in. Like I said earlier, I don't know 100% that it's all Jalen. I believe that it's a combination, it's a confluence of things. It is the offensive coordinator getting his footing. It's the offensive line, rounding into shape and playing better, playing, well enough to allow Jalen time in the pocket to do what he needs to do. I think it's the coverage that he's seeing and the way that defense coordinators are morphing what they're doing, from 1 second to the next. And I also believe that, it is, part of it is on Jalen. Jalen has to play better. He's got to see the field better. There are players that are open in situations that he misses them. He's thrown some good balls. I think the ball that he threw, the interception that he threw last week was just horrible. I don't think I've seen him make a throw that bad, in a long time. I understand the concept of the route. You had Devontae Smith on an in route with A.J. Brown clearing, and, the defense knew exactly where he was going with the ball, and they jumped the route and picked him off. I just think that he predetermined where he was going with that ball from the beginning. I understand that that's a timing route, that you want to throw it with timing, but you still have to have the ability to see the coverage and realize that you didn't have anything there. And actually, if you thrown that ball deep to A.J. Brown inside into the middle of the field, that he actually had his guy beat to the middle of the field with no safety help. All right? Okay, let's go to the next question. So I apologize, guys. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. The system is running a little slow, so bear with me. So Duffy wants to know, why are our D-backs playing 10 yards back on third down? Listen, our DBs played 7-8 yards off the ball last year on third and 3, 3rd and 5 situations. This is a part of the bend but don't break style defense that Vic Fangio kind of implements. And you had Jonathan Gannon last year, who was supposedly, influenced by Vic Fangio's style of defense. And we know that Sean Desai coached under Vic Fangio for quite some time during his tenure as a coach in the National Football League. This is the type of passivity that you're going to see from time to time. It's the low risk that you see from the standpoint of what Nick Sirianni wants, because these are the type of coordinators that he's hired. They don't want to take a chance and give up big plays. Nick Sirianni's motto is, we want to hit big plays down, explosive plays down the field, and we want to minimize those same plays on the defensive side of the ball. So you're going to see some bend but don't breaking, and it's going to make you scratch your head, because I feel the same way. If I want to stop a team on third down and it's 3rd and 5, I'm certainly not going to line up at 7, 8 yards or 10 yards. That's an automatic, because the good quarterbacks are just going to raise up and throw the ball out there, and they're automatically going to get the first down, because if they're lined up at 10 and they only need 5, he's going to break down at 6 to try to make the tackle, because he doesn't want to give up the big play. Why not get him up and give the quarterback the illusion that, you're up in press. You can bail. You can stay there. You can play him from man there. There's a whole lot of different things you can do by moving up and moving back and moving around. But when you line up at 10 yards, you're telling the quarterback right now, hey, if you want this first down, you can have it. Just raise up and throw the ball out there, and we'll give it to you, because by the time we react and come up, you're going to have the 5 yards necessary. All right? Next question. So I'm Ruiz wants to know, why is our secondary looking so weak? They're not pressing enough or holding enough to allow our D-line to get to the quarterback. That's a great question, because, people want to know, why do we only have 2.5, 3 sacks as a defensive unit? Maybe 5, okay? If you go back to the New England game, it was pretty evident that New England, their game plan was they knew that they could not block the Eagles' defensive front. And I can't tell you how many times you look up and you actually saw guys just barely get there. Well, their game plan was get the ball out quick. 3-step drop, you know, 1-step drop, get the ball out. Get the ball out of your hand, Mac Jones, before the defense can get to you. And we were close a lot, but we never really got there and never really affected him. You saw Kirk Cousins do some of the same things with Justin Jefferson, some of the crossing routes. You saw a lot of crossing routes. And you get stuff like that when you got young players on the field that you know aren't communicating, that are just dropping to a landmark and they're unaware of how routes develop and where routes are coming from. So listen, I get your point. I understand. You know, they need to be more aggressive. But, you know, you guys know I talk about it all the time, how the coverage and the pass rush go hand in hand. You're not going to have one without the other. They have to work hand in hand. So in order to get there, you know, that means that you got to be more aggressive in your pass coverage. Your coverage needs to be tighter. And if that's not the case, if you're going to play off and allow guys free access and free releases on all of their routes, well, teams are going to look at your defense and say, hey, they've got a hell of a pass rush. You know, the young defensive tackle, rookie defensive tackle, has 12 pressures in 2 games. Okay. I think the Eagles as a unit leads the NFL in pressures as a defensive unit. So if that's the case, then we can't allow our quarterback to stand here with the ball, patting the ball, waiting for routes of 15 to 20 yards to develop. We need to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands right now. That means slants. That means quick speed outs. That means crossing routes right now where the quarterback can dump it. That means swing routes to the running back so we can get the ball out of the quarterback's hands right now. That's going to mean that the defense is going to have to move up. They're going to have to press. They're going to have to, you know, be a little more aggressive in their coverage schemes. They're going to have to play a little more, maybe, you know, zone match. Being able to say, okay, if this guy crosses, I'm going to communicate with my linebacker on the other side, crossing, because I know if I get one guy crossing, there's another coming back. So once I pass him off, I'm waiting for the next guy to come. And I'm not just standing there waiting. I'm actively looking him up with my eye on the quarterback so I can see where he is, so I can start working that way and take that throw away. That taking away of that throw allows the defense that added second to actually get there, okay? All right, next question. So Sean wants to know, does Jalen Carter remind you of Jerome Brown with his technique and quick first step? He reminds me of a lot of guys. He does remind me of Jerome. I think if I think back over the history, you know, of defensive tackles and, you know, the ones that have been great and very proficient, I think back on guys like Howie Long. I think back on guys like John Randall, guys like Cortez Kennedy, guys like Jerome Brown. Absolutely. Because he's one of those guys that has the ability to, you know, not only rush the passer, but he also has the ability to play the run, and he's dominant in both areas. Very rarely do you see a guy who has counter moves in his pass rushing in his rookie year. You know, not only can he dominate with his hands and two gap in the run situations, but he also can dominate in the pass rush situation where if he can beat you with a speed rush and you recover, he has the ability to go from speed to power. He has the ability, you know, to run the hump move. Like when he speed rushes and the guy recovers, he can stop and take that inside hand and hip toss. He actually did that in the game against in the first game against New England. And I watched it. The only other guy I've ever seen really use that proficiently, you know, was Reggie White. So he's got some skill sets that's second to none. And you hear him talk. He talks about how Tracy Rocker, the D-line coach, wants him to play the game, you know, from a very physical standpoint because he's a physical specimen. And he talks about how last year at Georgia how he used a lot of finesse. Well, when he learns how to and when to use the power and when to use the finesse, I promise you he's going to become even better, so much greater. He's going to be unblockable because he'll know exactly on what down and what distance and what situation and whether it's pass or run situations. Okay, I can be aggressive from, a physical standpoint. And then I can use my quickness in my hands, from a finesse standpoint, to get to the quarterback or to affect the run game, to cut the field in half, against a run play. You see Aaron Donald, he's another guy that I kind of left off. He's a guy who can dominate the game in the same way. People don't understand, when he jumps a gap and he cuts the field off, that means that the running back has no cutback lane. He has to hit that play front side. When he's dominating on obvious passing downs and, you got, 300 plus pound, guards that can't get out of their stance fast enough or can't move their feet fast enough to keep up with him, and he's by him like that. These are all things that Jalen Carter possesses, and he's just still a baby, the baby rhino to be, more precise. And the better he gets and the more experience he begins to gather, the better he's going to be at what he does. Hey, listen, you guys are watching the Seth Joyner Show, presented to you by Bet Parks. And, we're going to continue rapid firing through some more of these questions before we get to another break. All right, I think it's Donnie. Yeah, Donnie wants to know, would I rotate Nolan Smith at linebacker? Excuse me. I get the sense that, the Philadelphia Eagles have some things planned for Nolan Smith, that you're not only going to see him, as a pass rusher on the edge in certain situations, but I think you're going to see him start to play some linebacker as well. I don't know what the circumstances and what the situation is, with his shoulder. I know I've heard someone say that, he was asked about it, in the during the preseason. They asked him, how's it working? And his comment was, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't think anybody really knows the severity of the shoulder and what's keeping him from being, used in games throughout the first 2 weeks. So we'll just have to wait to see, how that continues to pan out. Let's go grab one more question before we jump to one more break before we finish up. So I believe it's Jason. Jason Artist wants to know, do you think that we want to consistently run the ball in the future, every game, or try to pass the ball more? Or what is your percentage of run pass in order for success? It all depends, Jason. Every game is different. I believe that if the Eagles come out and they consistently begin to run the ball well, then I think that opens up Jalen Hurts in the running game, and then you can successfully get back to some of your run pass options, some of your RPO stuff. There's obviously going to be games where teams are going to be weaker against the pass, that doesn't have the pass rush or the blitz scheme that can really cause the Eagles, a lot of problems. Then you go back to your passing game. Then you can go back and say, okay, let's come out throwing the ball. Let's figure out how we get Jalen and AJ and Devontae and Dallas Goedert. Let's figure out a way to get them going early. And if we can get a lead going early, then maybe we can, once we get a lead, then we can get back to the running game and we can, kind of mix it up. So it works both ways. I'm not a proponent in any facet. Let me just say this. I'm not a proponent in any facet. I'm not a proponent for strictly a running game. I think, the Eagles ran the ball 48 times the other night for 259 yards and 3 touchdowns. They did that because they had to, not because they really want to do that. You do things out of necessity. Where you have to do it, you do it. But what did it do? It began to open up the passing game a little more, and they could now get some things in the passing game that they weren't able to get in the first half. It's the same thing with blitzing. A lot of people hear me talk about pressure and blitzing and think that I'm blitz happy. No. Understand. There's a time and a place for blitzing, and there's a time and place for pressuring. There's a difference between pressure and blitzing, okay? And there's a time to play zone, and there's a time to be a little more passive. But there are situations where it's beyond me that coaches believe that they can't be aggressive. You know, there's times where you have to be aggressive. You know, whether you want to or not, you got to tell your guys, hey, knuckle up. We're coming because we need to come in this situation. We need to make something happen. And then you as a coach can't be afraid of what the outcome is going to be. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. That's just the way it goes. It's no different than when you make the decision to come out throwing the ball 15 times in the first half and you only ran the ball twice, but you haven't had success. Be willing to change. Be willing to adjust. No different on the defensive side of the ball. And that's the thing I like about Sean Desai is he's not afraid to bring some pressures. In desperate times, it will cause for desperate measures where you'll have to blitz. And you may have to blitz often to be able to affect change. But what I like is I see him running some run blitzes on first and second down. I see him running some zone blitzes, some 5- and 6-man pressures, you know, that are delayed. Well, last year with Jonathan Gannon, you got nothing but straight coverage, you know. And then we wonder why, you know, we got to the Super Bowl after getting 70 sacks in the regular season and we didn't have the footing to get the job done from a pressure situation, yet we were still afraid to bring pressure against Patrick Mahomes. And in the second half, they carved us up. They carved us up because you weren't willing to do what was necessary to win the football game, and that was bringing some pressure and bringing some blitzing. They did it to Jalen Hurts. Why wouldn't you do it to Patrick Mahomes? All right? Okay, one more break, and then when we come back, I'll take you guys to the finish line.
At Revolution X, we know that fortunes are made in times of uncertainty. Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional-grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain. At Mandrecchia Law, we win big personal injury cases, but we always tell our clients up front that those cases almost always hinge on how much insurance coverage people or companies have. At Mandrecchia Law, we don't sell insurance, but we're experts in helping our clients make sure they have the right insurance to protect their businesses and families. Do you have the right insurance? Most people don't. For a consultation, visit mmattorneys.com or call 610-584-0700. Mandrecchia Law, aggressive attorneys who get the job done.
This is Seth Joyner, top analyst for the Birds. I've also analyzed the best auto dealerships, and I drive a Davis Honda.
Fall into savings at Davis Honda. Over 300 cars available. And right now, get rates as low as 0.9% at Davis Honda in Burlington. Plus, you'll get 2 years of free oil changes on every new and used Davis Honda vehicle. See why Davis Honda continues to win outstanding awards for sales and service, including the highest award from Honda, the President's Award. Get to Davis Honda in Burlington.
Fall into savings at Davis Honda. JP Mascaro and Sons is a family-owned, locally operated solid waste service company in business for over 60 years. You've seen the red trucks with the blue elephant that symbolizes strength and reliability. Mascaro is different than other national brands. Like the Birds, Philadelphia is home. They'll take care of all your waste removal needs. They have it all: an experienced workforce, state-of-the-art equipment, a cutting-edge recycling center, and their own disposal facilities. Call 888-MASCARO or visit jpmascaro.com. Welcome back, guys. You know, I told you guys I was going to take your questions to end the show. But let's talk about Tampa Bay a little bit and what's in store for the Eagles, and then we'll finish up with maybe 1 or 2 questions. Baker Mayfield has played some pretty darn good football for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay last year was a team that was down. It had, you know, a difficult year in Tom Brady's last year, and you know, a lot of change, a lot of transition for this football team. They come into this year and they made the decision to, you know, go with Baker Mayfield, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people looked at that like, wow, you're going to take that shot, that chance. But, and it's not that, you know, in Cleveland he didn't have a halfway decent defense. But this defense in Tampa Bay is one of the better defenses in the National Football League. The challenge for the Eagles on Sunday is going to be, you know, they put up 245 48 yards rushing last week. Tampa Bay is one of the top teams, against the run in the National Football League with Big Vita Vea there in the middle. You got those two linebackers that, run like safeties. So the Eagles are going to have to really figure out a way to scheme to be able to get the running game going. But what that defense provides for Baker is like there's this camaraderie between the two. They complement each other, I should say. And Baker doesn't have to take a lot of chances. All he has to do is manage the game. Now, he don't have any turnovers, which is unheard of through 2 games, because I challenge you to go back and find 2 games in his entire career where he didn't turn the ball over at least once or twice each game. But what he's doing is he's managing the game. Now, he's made some throws. He's tried to fit some balls into Mike Evans. Mike Evans is having a hell of a year. Great game last week. So he'll try to fit some balls into Mike Evans just because of Mike's size. But what Baker does is, sometimes he can be a little inaccurate. There's been some balls that teams have had an opportunity to intercept, but they dropped them. So he'll try to fit some balls in certain situations. He'll try to throw the ball on time and on rhythm, and sometimes he'll be, early, or sometimes he'll be late. And what I have not seen is Tampa Bay, really be in a position where, you force Baker to have to throw the football. The Eagles have to figure out a way to do that. Now, Tampa Bay does not run the ball well on the offensive side either, yet they try to stay balanced. Last week, they were 34 passes, 34 runs. They ran the ball a little bit better, in week 2 than they did week 1. They're actually averaging about 33 runs per game. They're only averaging 96 runs per game, 96 yards per game. And that's what I believe 2.8 yards per carry. So there's an opportunity for the Eagles, if they can shut down the run and get an early lead, to really put Baker in a position where they can get after him and force him, speed up his clock, and force him to make some decisions and create the Baker of old. That is a turnover machine. On the offensive side on the defensive side of the ball, listen, Tampa Bay was just racked with injuries last year. They've got some good players. They've got 2 good linebackers. Shaq Barrett, is a legit pass rusher. You got a legit run stopper in the middle. And Vita Vea, they, in my opinion, they got, one of the top safeties in the league. I think one of the guys, I'm trying to remember his name, tall kid, number 35, that plays corner for them. I think he's too tall to actually, play cornerback. And I think the Eagles can make some hay there with either Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown on him. They've just got to have the time to be able to do it. And they've got to, commit to running the football, even though that they want to throw the ball, and have the wherewithal. If you do come out and the game plan is going to be to throw the ball early, at least have the awareness that if it's not working, to not abandon it, but also go ahead and commit yourself to running the football so that you can get back to the run game if that's what you want to do. This is going to be an interesting test for them. The first 2 weeks have been an interesting test, but this one's going to be just as interesting, because this is truly one of the better football teams, one of the better defenses, I should say. And they've got so many weapons on the offensive side. So I'll say it's one of the better football teams that they're going to face. And let's be honest. Jalen Hurts needs to exercise, the demon that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 2 years ago, they beat up on them pretty soundly on a Thursday night in Philadelphia. And then they turned around and embarrassed them in the first round of the playoffs that same year. Jalen Hurts isn't the same quarterback. He's a much better quarterback. This football team isn't the same team. It's a much better football team. So I expect that, Sean Desai and Brian Johnson, and first and foremost, Nick Sirianni will come up with a plan with all the time that they've had, to be able to win this football game. And I expect them to win this football game. It's going to be a close one, but I do expect for them to come away with the victory. All right. So let's take 2 more questions before we wrap up the evening. So Boots Void wants to know, what's my thought on using a backup offensive lineman as a running back for a few plays? No, stop it, man. You can go ahead and click that one off and give me another one. They are not going to take Jordan Mailata and put him in as a running back. You know, I heard that commentary before. He's their starting left tackle who they're paying a lot of money to. Even if you're talking about, you know, some other offensive lineman, who do they have that has the speed that Jordan Mailata has? There's nobody else. So you got to be alluding to, you know, using Jordan Mailata as a running back or a fullback. Not going to happen. They're not going to risk that. All right. Last question of the night. Michael Hellman wants to know, do I see the Eagles using their running game more after their performance last week against Minnesota? I think you can go back historically and see that the running game has been a big part of the success for the Philadelphia Eagles over time. In 2017, when they won the NFC Championship and went against Minnesota and then went into Minnesota's house and won their first Super Bowl in the modern era, it was because of the running game. I think some of you guys will remember early in the year, Doug Peterson came out with this, you know, throw mentality. Didn't start off well. And then all of a sudden, you know, everybody, the cry was, you know, roll that Blunt, as in give the ball to LeGarrette Blunt. And once they started doing that, the offense began to take off. Last year, they ran the ball so proficiently last year, they led the league in rushing the entire year almost. Got them all the way to the Super Bowl, okay? Through 6 quarters this year, the team sputtered offensively. And then all of a sudden, they decided to turn around and hand the ball to DeAndre Swift, and their offense got on track. So to answer your question, I think the answer for them is yes, run the football. Run the football. It will open up everything else in your offense that you want to do. Then you can get back to, you know, the passing game. But sometimes you have to do the obvious, the running game, to get to the passing game. And there's also going to be games where, you know, you come out and you throw the ball, and that'll open up your running game. You know, so they kind of work hand in hand. But if that's what works, then that's what you go with. That's the sign of a good offensive coordinator. The sign of a good defensive coordinator, a good special teams coach, a good head coach, is identifying in game what the adjustments need to be and making the commitment to doing that, even though that's not really how you want to play the game. All right. So I expect to see the Eagles come out, try to establish the run game, get their offensive line going, and then off the running game with play action, bootlegs, RPO, misdirection plays, and things of that nature, they should be able to get back on track and throw the ball the way that they actually want to throw the ball. All right. That's the show, guys. As we wrap it up, as always, be good to each other and take care of each other. But most important, make sure you love each other. I'll see you guys back here next week, hopefully celebrating a win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. Peace.
When you open the BetParks app, you're in the zone. Winning is always a rush, but the money is in the moments. It's the confidence and underdogs covering, the tension before a clutch turnover, and the pride of a parlay paying off. It's another chance to win big with all-day action. Plus, win your first $10 bet and get $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun, you love to win. You bet. BetParks.
If you understand that success is built on trusted relationships and dependable performance, Mid-Penn Bank is the right bank for you. We're on a mission to prove that the right bankers can make a big difference. We work harder, we get things done, and we're in your corner. With financial centers strategically located throughout the greater Philadelphia region and new locations in central New Jersey, we're ready to bring you the best in commercial and personal banking. Call or visit us today to connect with a professional Mid-Penn banker. Member FDIC. Go Eagles!
Welcome to Bridgeview Partners, where IT and business innovation merge. We're not just another tech company. We're your strategic partner in navigating the ever-evolving digital landscape. Our team of experts tailors cutting-edge solutions to fit your unique needs, and ensuring your success is our top priority. Elevate your business with Bridgeview Partners. Discover the power of partnership and tech innovation today. Contact us now to experience the difference. Bridgeview Partners, where innovation meets excellence.